Right, so today we're going to have a little look at NixOS. So I've been meaning to do this for a while and it has been on the distro spinner, but it was just never coming round. And then someone in the comments of the last distro spinner video mentioned that they really just wanted to see a NixOS video. So I've agreed to do that, and actually I'm quite happy I've done, because this is quite an interesting and unique distribution. Not like one I've actually used before. It has hints of like Fedora Silverblue with that whole sort of atomic upgrades and things like that, but it's kind of a beast of its own making. So what we're going to do is have a look around just the general stuff, but before we do that I'm going to show you the whole installation process, because I think that's quite interesting as well. So before we get going though, we are using the reproducible builds and deployments of Nix, the package manager, which is what they use to build sort of NixOS. We haven't used their graphical user ISO because it comes with KDE, and we've used a lot of KDE on the channel as of recently. So we went for the minimal install here, and then we just followed their manual to get it installed. And I'll show you it's actually really quite an easy process. You could even, if you wanted to, SSH into it and just copy the commands over, which is what we're going to do now with a virtual machine. Bear in mind your disks may have different device labels and stuff, so you might not want to copy them verbatim. But let's do it now. So we've got a little virtual machine running here. Haven't started the installer yet. So what we're going to do is jump into the installer. So it's all command line, there is no GUI for the installer. And then once that's in, we're going to create a password for the NixOS user so we can SSH into it. And then we're just going to copy over the commands from the web browser and then get to the configuration file part of it, which is the most interesting part of the whole install. Okay, so we're in. What we're going to do is just quickly go password NixOS just so we can SSH into it. And then as you can see at the top here, it says sudo system start SSHD. That's what we're going to do to allow SSH access. So sudo system ctl start SSHD. Right, that's done. So let's get an IP address. It should be the same as what my last one was. So I've done a little dummy run. No, it's different. So that's 199. So now we're going to jump into a terminal. Let's minimize this window here. So that should be all good. Yes, we shall add the fingerprint. Type in the password we've just created. Okay, so we are in. What we're going to do is open up the manual. They've got a link to the manual in the applications launcher. So obviously we're using the GNOME desktop on the host, but we'll talk about the decision for using GNOME in a moment as well. So the NixOS manual is there, so we've already got it open in here. So let's just snap that to one side. And then it's also, actually I prefer it on that side. And then we're going to snap that to this side. Right, so we're going to start with installing. So let's just scroll up a little bit. So we don't have to worry about the networking because we know that the network's working because we're SSH'd into it. So we're going to start with partitioning and formatting. Let's just make sure we're definitely on the right part. There we go. So that's installing. We want... Here we go. So we don't need to boot in the system. We've done that. We don't need to network. We know we've got network working. So we're going to start here, partitioning and formatting. So before we do that, we're going to jump into sudo to get root privileges. Right, so let's just zoom this in a bit so you can see what's going on. One more. Okay, so if you've ever used like an Arch Linux installer, you'll be used to sort of this way of doing things, although they don't use fdisk, but I do believe you can. Yes, you can use fdisk and a few of the others, but the built-in one that it uses in the manual is called parted, so we can use parted to partition these disks. So what we're going to do is just copy these straight over. So if you're going to do this yourself, make sure that you know what your disk is. So we are using SDA, so we can just copy this straight because that is what's got on the manual. Obviously, if you've got more disks than that and you're installing to a different disk, you ain't going to want to copy these commands verbatim. Right, so we're going to copy that first command over. So it's going to say you may need to update etc/fs tab, but as it says here as a note, you can safely ignore parted's informational message about updating etc/fs tab. So that was the first part. Now we're going to do this. Okay, and again you can just keep ignoring that message every time it pops up. Now we're going to make our swap partition, which by default in the manual is 8 gig. Obviously you can change these values if you wanted to. Okay, so now we're going to make the boot partition. We are on EFI on here. We've enabled the EFI flag in VirtualBox. And then the last one in this one, obviously you can do a legacy boot there as well. Okay, so that's that part done. Fairly straightforward. Now we're going to format using just a standard make fs. So we're going to just copy and paste it straight over, because we know that everything lines up with what they've got in the manual there. Right, then we're going to do this one for our EFI, FAT32. Again, you can just ignore that, that's fine. So we can go straight into installing now. Right, so it does a mount dev disk by label. So we're going to copy this one over, and that's going to do it to MNT. Like so. And now we're going to make MNT/boot, and then we're also going to mount that at, you guessed it, MNT/boot. Right, that's that one done. So we can also turn the swap on now. So we did make an 8 gig swap, so we might as well turn it on. Right, that's that done. Now is the interesting part, is the NixOS generate config. So this is where your configuration.nix file comes from, and this is where you'll set up your distribution, including packages and everything else in the way you want to do it. So we're not going to go through the whole of it now, but we're going to show you how it all works. So what we're going to do is generate a config. So that will make one for us at mnt/etc/root NixOS/configuration. So you can use Nano, and Nano is built in, but so is Vim. So we're going to use Vim to jump into it. Bang, we're in. Right, so let's minimize this now, and we'll just quickly show you how this all works then. So if we scroll down, you can see there's a lot of stuff that's got the little hash there. So if you uncomment certain things, then that will sort of apply, and then we'll do a NixOS install, and then that'll build the distribution from that. So we're not going to worry too much because we've got a machine going already, but just for argument's sake, let's show you how it works. So we could remove this there, and then we could go Europe and then type in our locale, which is London. And then here, environment system packages is where you're going to do package install system wide. So you can also just do, there's a command to install packages just for the current user, I do believe, but we'll look at that once we've got out of this virtual machine. So what we're going to do is just very quickly remove that, remove that, remove that. Now anything that you type here, any system packages, will be installed for every user as far as I'm aware, and then you can keep rebuilding this configuration file after you've installed to install packages like that. So you can make it a bit nicer in the formatting, so we can just chuck that there and give it its own line. So what that will do now is install all of those packages for you. So you can also just go, let's say for argument's sake, htop, and then let's chuck Firefox in there as well. Okay, so that will do that for you. You can also enable SSH somewhere. There it is. So we could uncomment that, but we won't bother doing that now. Okay, so here is your X11 stuff. So you're going to want to uncomment all of this, like so. So by default, it does have a few sort of ready-made stuff in here for you. So you've got the KDE desktop environments. If you wanted to uncomment all of that, that would install the KDE desktop environment. However, what I've done is I've installed GNOME, but you can install a few more sort of desktops like this, and one that I did try out, which I didn't stay on very long, was Pantheon. I'll get into the reason why we didn't stay on to Pantheon very long either. So if we jump into the manual and just type in, say, Pantheon, as you can see, it's got its own little addition in the manual here. So all we'd have to do is copy this line here, and then obviously if you've got some, you don't need to do this, it will automatically set light DM for you, as long as you uncomment the X11 stuff. Actually, we can keep that full screen. Right, so what we could do now is chuck a couple of lines there. Let's just call this Pantheon. Now we've copied that in, so what that will now do is install a Pantheon desktop environment for us. So let's see if there's anything else we need to really worry about for now. Nah, not really. So obviously you might want to change a lot of this sort of network proxy and host names and things like that, but we're not going to worry about that in this virtual machine. So we're going to quit that now. So that is done. So now what we're going to do is go NixOS-install. And then what that's going to do now is build the configuration from that configuration file. Pretty cool, huh? So we're not going to worry about that for now. I'm probably not even going to let that finish, but I just thought I'd show you how that all works. Now we're going to jump into the host. So let's get out of this. Let's just close. We don't worry about that now. I'll let it run for a couple of seconds actually, just so you can see what it does. There we go. So it's now downloading all of that stuff, and then it's going to make a new system out of what we've just put into that configuration file. That's amazing. That's really cool. Right, so let's get out of this now. Close terminal, and we're just going to quit that. I don't need to keep running that now, and it might make running the video a bit easier. So let's just power that off and delete it. Right, so let's get rid of this one, and then we're going to show you the actual configuration file we are using on this host machine. So let's delete all files. Done. Right, so let's jump into our own configuration file. Let's just zoom in a bit. And I'll quickly tell you why we are using GNOME and not Pantheon or anything like that. I also did try out XFCE as well, which ran okay. Okay, so let's jump into... You also don't have sudo privileges by default unless you sort of configure it to do that. I've already added Tyler to the sudo group. Right, so we want to go into MNT, no we don't, etc, NixOS, and then we want configuration. Right, so here's our config file. I don't think I've even finished this one properly, to be honest. I'm pretty sure I've left the host name as something silly. Let's have a look. Have I done the host name? Yeah, so I've not even changed the host name on this one yet, to be honest. But as you can see, this is our configuration file. We've done the ENGB UTF-8 for our key layout and stuff like that. We're in Europe, London, and here's the packages that we have got installed system-wide using system packages on here. So we have wget, vim, Firefox, htop, GNOME Free, GNOME Tweaks, and Chrome GNOME Shell. We also have the VirtualBox flags here, so we can run VirtualBox like we were just doing. And then what else have we got? So here we go, I'll show you a couple of things. So we've got the X11 desktop here. So we've got GNOME, which is uncommented because that's what we're currently using. We've also got the XFCE stuff there, so I've commented that just so it doesn't sort of have more than one desktop environment at a time. And as you can see here, we have Pantheon desktop, and I've written into there no single click. So I couldn't get single click to like deactivate and have double click because elementary tweaks I couldn't find an easy way of doing it. And deconf editor doesn't have the additions in it to actually let me change anything in the files application. But I'll show you what the Pantheon desktop looks like as well. So what I'm going to do now is comment GNOME, and we're going to show you what the Pantheon stuff looks like. And we're also going to show you how it manages. So you have like different boot files for each. I do believe they call them generations, and then you can clean up the generations after you're done with them, or you can leave them there and roll back to a previous version. So let's chuck a comment. Let's chuck a little hash in there. Oh, where have we gone? Right, hash, and now we're going to go all the way down to the Pantheon desktop environment, and we're just going to remove that bad boy. So now what we're going to do is write and quit that. I'm not going to worry about my system packages, I'll leave them as is, although obviously there will be some stuff in there that won't work on Pantheon because there's GNOME tweaks and things like that. Right, so that's now done. So what we're going to do is go to, I do believe it's a rebuild NixOS switch. Is that the one? No. Okay, so I've probably run it before. Let's just quickly search for it. NixOS rebuild switch. Okay, so what we're going to do is run NixOS rebuild switch. So we got it kind of right, just the wrong way around. So what that's now going to do is rebuild our configuration file, and the desktop's going to sort of be reformed from that configuration file. There you go, so it's now creating all of those in the Nixstore paths. If there's any errors or sort of syntax errors and stuff, it will tell you, and it will tell you which line, or you can do a show trace and see what's actually happened there, just in case you need to sort of get in to see what's actually gone wrong. But no, to be honest, so far I'm finding this a very interesting and unique way of running a Linux distribution. And like I showed you with the configuration file, when we was first in the VirtualBox, while we was SSH'd into it, we could have just copied over the host's configuration file and built our distro from there. So it's like reproducible. You could keep the one configuration file and have the same setup for each computer, which I think again is very cool. Right, that shouldn't take too much longer. I do believe we're on the last line. Done, so it's rebooted there. It won't always reboot there, but it seems to do it every now and then for certain packages. So when I'm turning off GNOME, it does reboot. So what we're going to do is it's got a bit stuck, so I'm just going to go Control Alt Delete and just let it reboot like that. So when we get into the boot screen, I'll show you what I mean by the generations now. You'll probably see I've done quite a few while I've been playing around with it. Right, it shouldn't take just a second. Here we go. So like you can see, we've got quite a lot of generations here, and these are, each generation was built from from the configuration file. Then we've done the NixOS rebuild switch. So the most recent one here, generation 12, will be the one that we've just made with the Pantheon desktop. So let's jump into that. And we should be at the login screen. There we go. And here we are at the Pantheon desktop. There we go. So we have Plank there. Oh, Plank is obviously included in Pantheon, and I had it in XFCE, so it's got the theming a bit wrong for the Pantheon thing. So here we go, we're in the Pantheon desktop. It's picked up the theme that I installed on GNOME, which was of course Arc theme. But yeah, very straightforward and a very nice way of doing things. So what we're going to do now is jump back into GNOME, and then we're going to show you how we clean up the they call it garbage. We're going to clean up that boot order with all of those separate generations. So I do believe it's garbage collect or something, but we'll jump into the manual just to make sure we are in the right place. Here we go, garbage collection. Okay, so collect garbage.d. So what we're going to do is go back into our configuration file now. Don't have a terminal. Oh, it's Alt-T, isn't it, on Pantheon? So yeah, the reason why I'm not using Pantheon is because we can't get single click to work. I'm sure you can, I just didn't have enough time to, we can't get double click to work. I'm sure you can, I just didn't have enough time to really fiddle around with it, and it was just really doing my head in. I hate single click. So what we're going to do now is just go back into GNOME, but I thought I'd show you how that works quite nice and easy. So let's jump back into our config file. So let's find GNOME, there it is. So let's remove them again, let's uncomment that. Oh. And then let's chuck another hash back onto here, so then we will be using GNOME by default. Okay, that appears to be all we need to do. So now let's get out of that, right quit, and again we're going to go to rebuild, NixOS rebuild switch, and then that's going to rebuild the desktop again from our configuration file, and then we'll have another generation in our boot order when we do the selecting of which generation we want to use. So it will be up to number 13 now. The reason why it didn't start at 1 is because we've done a quick cleanup before that, and it's removed anything that was there before. There we go. So when you're just doing system packages and things like that, which I'll show you in a moment for sort of programs, it probably won't reboot like that for you, but I've noticed that it does with things that are quite large like GNOME and different desktop environments. Right, so we should now have a new entry in our generations. Bang, so we are on now generation 13, so let's jump into that. And then that should be pretty much the same sort of setup that we had, although any sort of customizations we've done with GNOME tweaks might not be there. Right, we're back in. And now we're going to clean up those generations. Oh, it is exactly the same. Very nice. So let's jump back into Firefox and just get the garbage collect command. Yeah, with restore it should be the same. There we go. Okay, so like you can see here, we have collect garbage. So we're going to jump into that now. So with D, we're not going to do the D flag first. We're going to do the normal flag first with just no flag there. So now it's going to delete a lot of that stuff that we don't need. And as you can see, it's freed up 76 megabytes with 136 store paths deleted. Now we're going to chuck a D in there. Done, so that's everything done. So now if we do a reboot, we should not have loads of entries in those generations now. At least I'm hoping not. I think that's how you do it. I think the more I spend time with this, the more little things I'm going to find very cool. It is probably the most unique distribution I've used, to be fair. Right, hopefully what we've done is clean that up a bit. No, we haven't. Right, so we obviously need to work out what the commands we need to clear up our generation. So we're going to jump back into the internet and try and find that exact package name of command. Right, let's just log back in. Right, so let's go onto the internet and let's just Google something like how to remove generations. I've already done it, I just don't remember what the commands are. Okay, So I've opened this one, so this is probably the one with the answer. Okay, maybe it's because we didn't have sudo in front of it. Let's try that then. Yeah, there we go. That's now deleting all of those for us. Shouldn't take too long. And then what we'll do is we'll open up the configuration file, and we'll show you how sort of installing system-wide packages works with the system packages. Okay, so look how much that's freed. That's freed up almost 3 gigabytes worth of space there. Obviously you could leave older ones on, and if you have any issue or you just want to roll back and use a previous version, you won't need to clear it up, and they're always going to be there available. Very good, very, very clever stuff. Right, okay, so let's jump into our configuration file. Right, so let's think of a program. So we've got htop and things like that. What could we test? So it will have gedit by default because we're in GNOME. Let's think of a program to use. What have we got so far? What could we use? I wonder if, what's the, I'm trying to think of a program that will work well with that. Is Lollipop. I wonder if Lollipop is in the repos here. So Lollipop's a music player that is built with GNOME, so let's try that. So let's write and quit, and now let's rebuild from that configuration file. If it doesn't find Lollipop, or if there's any issue, again it will tell you. So it's building the system configuration. There we go, so we didn't seem to get any error there for Lollipop, so hopefully it does find that, and then that will be installed system wide. Done. Okay, so let's do a reboot, and if all has gone well, we should now have Lollipop the music player also available in our applications, and then we'll also be able to see if it's cleared up those old generations as well. Dun, dun, dun. There you go. So we've now only got 2, and then we could revert back to 13 if we really wanted to. So again, I think that's really cool. It's a bit like the way Fedora Silverblue does it with their deployments, but I think there's a bit more that you can do with this than obviously you can do with Silverblue. Right, so we're back in. So hopefully now we'll have the application Lollipop in our applications launcher. So let's have a look. There we go. So there's Lollipop, which is the program that we did just install. So let's get out of that now. Right, so what we're going to do now is jump into their manual, because you can manage packages like per user if you wanted to, and you don't need sudo privileges for that. So you could create user accounts for certain people, and then only give them access to the programs installing like this. So let's go into package management. So I do believe it's NixEnv. There we go. So NixEnv environment. So we could install just a random old package, like, let's say we wanted to install what could we install with that? So we have GNOME. Let's do it with Thunderbird. So what we're going to do now is install Thunderbird. Or are we? Okay, we're obviously doing the wrong thing. Here we go, NixIA, let's try that one. Ad hoc packages, that's what it's called, ad hoc package management. So let's type in Thunderbird. Hold on, it's got the NixOS thing there, that'll do it. Right, so that'll install Thunderbird, and that's version 68.9.0. And as far as I'm aware, that won't be available for other users now. So if we just make sure that we have got Thunderbird there, it's not appeared. Or perhaps that does do it in our file. Tell you what, let's log out and log back in. It might be that we've done the wrong command there, we shall find out. There we go, it says Thunderbird. That's a rather I've never seen that icon before for Thunderbird. Okay, so we've got the Thunderbird there, and I'm going to see now if that is available to a different user. So if we log out, and then just go for not listed, and we'll just use root because we don't have any other users on here at the moment. And as you can see, there is no Thunderbird available. You can't see because we haven't mirrored the screens. Hold on. Give me a second. Right, mirror. Keep changes. Bang. Right, so as you can see, that command that we done was just ad hoc, so it won't be available for any other user as far as I can tell, and it's not available en route. So let's log back out now. And log back into our user account, and then just have a little look around, and we're going to wrap it up there. There's a lot more that we could go into. I'm going to do a follow-up video on this one after the distro spinner week is finished, because I think it deserves a full review, this, because it is definitely a very interesting way of doing things. And yeah, that's basically that whole thing. So let's jump back into their manual for one last time. Right, so that was package management. So what is the remove command for that? Should we try and remove Thunderbird now? So let's go back into package management. So customizing packages. So to remove Thunderbird, here we go. So we can remove it with the E flag. So let's do that. And you can also roll back an undesirable NIV action. That's pretty cool. So let's remove that. Okay, so Thunderbird's removed, and like you can see, we didn't need any sudo privileges to do any of that. You will, of course, need sudo privileges for the configuration file stuff. Right, so that's basically the main thing that I really wanted to take a look at. Obviously, there's loads of stuff that we could really get into, but we will do a follow-up video for that. But I think it's really a very interesting and unique Linux distribution. So if we go on to here and just go on to like the many other advantages, there's a lot of stuff here. So multiple versions, you can have more than one version of a package at the same time, complete dependencies, multi-user support, so atomic upgrades and rollbacks. Since the package management operations never overwrite packages in the Nix store, but just adds new versions in different paths, they are atomic. So during a package upgrade, there is no time window in which the package has some files from the old version and some files from the new version, which would be bad because a program might crash if it started during that period. So again, very good, very sort of safe and stable. So again, we can uninstall things like that. Nix collect garbage. Let's do a garbage collection and see if we've managed to accumulate any more garbage. We have indeed. So that's 10 megabytes now free from there. Transparent source, Nix package collection, manage and build environments. And to install it, obviously we showed the path, the way to install it with just the ISO, but I do believe you can install the Nix package manager on other Linux distributions. There we go. So the quickest way to install, yeah, I think this is a very interesting distribution. I really quite like it. So the way we've set up our GNOME desktop is pretty standard really. We've just got GNOME tweaks there onto the in there, which has given us dash the dock on the left. Again, everything worked as it should. The version of GNOME isn't the newest version ever, so this is version 3.34. Oh, we've done an upgrade, so we've gone up, so it was 3.34 earlier. But everything works just like you would expect. To get VirtualBox guest editions, you have to add a line in your configuration, not guest editions, extension pack, into your configuration file, but we've not bothered, and it does tell you that it's not actually free software, so we've not really bothered with that. Oh god, what's happened there? There we go. Right, so I'm going to reboot and show you how much RAM we were using at boot, but before we do that, I'm going to show you the upgrades and the way that all works. Firefox seems to be a bit laggy when I first open it up. Let's get out of it for a minute and let's go into the manual. Right, so let's go on to upgrades, upgrading NixOS. Let's open that in a new tab. And I wonder if they've got a page for updates. Yeah, so you can update with the Nix channels and stuff. That was what I remember reading. Right, so we're in upgrading NixOS now. So again, we could switch to different channels, and then we could just do a Nix rebuild, switch and upgrade. So let's try and just do this one command here. And also we can add automatic upgrade flags into our configuration file. I've not bothered doing that, although you can do that and then it will upgrade automatically, much like Fedora Silverblue tends to do. So let's open up a terminal and we'll chuck a sudo in front of that and we'll see what that command does. There we go, so it's building the system configuration. Done. Easy as that. So there weren't really anything upgrades to do because we've done that very recently, so everything's quite up to date. And then finally, let's jump back into the package configuration, package management. Right, so customizing packages, adding custom packages, so obviously you've got the Git stuff there, ad hoc, which we have done. Right, packages come from the NixOS channel. You typically upgrade a package by updating to the latest version of the NixOS update channel. So you can update with that there, and obviously you can do the rollbacks. But yeah, no, very interesting. I'm really quite excited to actually look at this more in depth once this distro spinner week is over. So I'm just going to show you what HTOP says at the moment. So we're on about 820 megabytes RAM. So we're going to do a reboot, get a final RAM reading, and we're going to wrap it up there. But I'm definitely going to do a follow-up video because this is one that does interest me quite a bit. So let's do a reboot now. Okay, let's log back in. There we go, so we're using 690 megabytes of RAM. This isn't the latest version of GNOME though, which I do believe they've done a bit of work to get that down a little bit. But that's pretty damn good, to be fair. And to be honest, I'm really excited to actually just use this more. I'll probably do a week in review of this one and just see what it's actually like to use as a daily driver. But that's kind of a first impression sort of look at NixOS, in particular the GNOME desktop. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and also join the Discord. There's a link in the description. See you on the next one. Bye bye.